Bassam Qureshi was admired. Habeeba Tazeen was adored. But behind their perfect love story lay a nightmare so twisted it would shake an entire nation. Asterisk, asterisk, their lives appeared like a dream. Successful careers. A lavish wedding, smiles captured in every photograph. But when Habeeba vanished without a trace, the mask cracked. What unfolded was a chilling descent into obsession, manipulation, and murder meticulously planned by the man who claimed to love her the most. Asterisk, asterisk, this is the haunting true crime story of how love, when corrupted by control, turned fatal. Asterisk, asterisk, Bassam Qureshi and Habeeba Tazeen were the kind of couple that made others believe in fairy tales. Their wedding was a high society event that filled magazine pages and social feeds for weeks. The elite of Islamabad attended. Photographers captured every moment, and their smiling faces became symbols of modern success and love. Bassam, a confident and driven real estate developer, had built a reputation as a visionary, known for turning empty land into luxury homes. Habeeba, an elegant and artistic woman, owned a small but successful art gallery in the heart of the city. They met at a charity auction, and within months they were inseparable. Their home was nestled in a serene, upscale neighborhood surrounded by trimmed hedges and tall iron gates. To outsiders, it looked like a perfect life, beauty, wealth, and harmony. But something subtle had shifted in recent months. The sparkle in Habeeba's eyes had dimmed. She had started canceling art events, shuttered her gallery with a vague promise of renovations, and rarely responded to messages. Those who once regularly received her invitations now only heard about her through filtered photos posted by Bassam.Tamkeen Beg. Her closest friends since university sensed something was wrong. She remembered Habeeba as vibrant and expressive, never one to hide behind silence. Their recent interactions had been brief and awkward. Habeeba no longer spoke about her artwork or gallery projects. She brushed off personal questions with quick smiles and changed subjects mid-sentence. There were rumors to whispers about arguments behind closed doors, about strange deliveries being made to their home, and about a woman who once accused Bassam of misconduct abroad. Meanwhile, Bassam's business had taken a sharp turn. He was often seen in the company of new investors, quiet men with foreign accents and briefcases of cash. Fareed, his younger brother, worked closely with him and noticed discrepancies in the firm's books. Some payments didn't make sense. Certain transactions were deliberately untraceable. Bassam had started visiting a property outside the city, a long-abandoned farmhouse once owned by their grandfather. It had no active listing in the company's portfolio, yet Bassam seemed to spend hours there, especially at night. He always went alone. Fareed confronted him once, only to be brushed off with vague talk of future plans. But something didn't sit right. One night, Fareed followed him at a distance, keeping his car's lights off and maintaining a safe gap. He watched from afar as Bassam unlocked the rusty gate, disappeared into the old structure, and didn't emerge for over an hour. The next morning, Bassam showed up to work like nothing happened, smiling, chatting, even laughing at jokes during their team meeting. Back at the house, Habeeba's social media remained active but robotic. Posts were carefully curated, images of sunrises, fresh flowers, and captions about healing and patience. The comments grew sparse over time, with close friends asking where she was and if she was okay. Most of those questions went unanswered. It was around this time that Tamkeen contacted the police. She didn't have concrete evidence, just a feeling and intuition sharpened by years of friendship. She mentioned emotional changes, the sudden isolation, and a strange call Habeeba made one night, whispering something about mistakes and regrets. Though hesitant, authorities made note of the report, classifying it as a non-urgent welfare concern. In the days that followed, Bassam appeared on local TV to promote his newest housing scheme, smiling and pitching luxury lifestyles. Habeeba remained invisible. When questioned, he said she was taking time for herself and focusing on personal growth. But no one had seen her, heard her voice, or received a reply to their messages. The silence around Habeeba grew louder. The once perfect picture of love and success now seemed like a carefully constructed illusion. And while Bassam continued his public life with confidence, those closest to Habeeba began to fear that the truth behind her disappearance would be darker than anyone imagined. Habiba's disappearance came quietly, like a candle snuffed out in the dark. On a cloudy Thursday morning, Bassam walked into a local police station to file a missing person report. He claimed that Habeeba had left for Lahore 3 days ago to visit her family but never arrived. His expression was calm, almost too composed. The officer on duty noted the lack of urgency in his voice, the casual way he recited the timeline. He said he'd waited a few days to report her missing because he thought, oh, she might have needed space. When investigators contacted Habiba's family, confusion rippled across the conversation. Her mother hadn't expected any visit. Fact? They hadn't heard from her in over a week. Her phone had been off, her messages unread. No one knew where she was. No travel had been planned. No bags were packed. And she hadn't driven her car, something she always did on long trips. Detective Sarwat Kaleem was assigned the case. She was known for solving difficult domestic disappearances, cases where love often masked control and smiles hid secrets. The first step was Habiba's phone records. They revealed her last outgoing activity ended at precisely 9:47 p.m. on the previous Friday. After that, there were no calls, no texts, no data usage. The digital silence was striking. Surveillance. Footage from highway toll booths and city exit routes was reviewed. Habiba's vehicle never left Islamabad. Even more unsettling, her Cara silver sedan was found 3 days later parked along a deserted roadside near the outskirts. The location was odd, far from her usual routes and away from any major traffic. The vehicle appeared untouched. No signs of struggle, no visible damage. But forensics revealed something far more troubling. The inside of the car had been wiped down with bleach. Seats, handles, dashboard, every surface had been aggressively cleaned. Yet small traces remained. A fingerprint partially smudged on the backseat window and a single earring beneath the passenger seat. The earring was part of a unique set Habeeba was last seen wearing in a photo posted on social media the night she vanished. The media caught wind of the story within hours. Headlines began circulating online. Where is Habeeba Tazeen? And vanishing bride of Islamabad. Public interest exploded, and social pressure pushed the investigation into overdrive. Reporters camped outside Bassam's home, snapping photos of him leaving for work, zooming in on his expressionless face. Detective Sarwat paid a visit to Bassam's home. She noted the carefully cleaned floors, the newly installed home security system, and the faint smell of industrial cleaner lingering in the air. Habiba's clothes were still in the closet, her makeup arranged neatly on the dresser, but her journal was missing. A woman like Habeeba, writer, an artist, always had something to write in. When asked about it, Bassam shrugged and said she must have taken it with her, TAMKEE, and was brought in for questioning. She admitted that Habeeba had confided in her a few weeks earlier. Though she hadn't said much, there were mentions of secrets, of feeling watched, of not being able to trust anyone anymore. Tam Kian revealed that Habeeba had begun keeping a hidden folder of printed emails and photographs, though she never showed them. That folder was also missing from the house. Then came a breakthrough. A man named Waleed, who worked as a municipal employee, called the police after seeing the news. He remembered towing a car 3 weeks earlier that matched Habeeba's license plate, the location, an overgrown trail near a private farmhouse property once belonging to the Qureshi family but believed to be abandoned. Detective Sarwat ordered a search of the area. Officers arrived at the gate, rusted shut but recently forced open. Weeds. were trampled, tire tracks were fresh. Something had disturbed the isolation of that place. The house looked abandoned at first glance. But closer inspection told another story. Locks recently changed. Lights installed in the basement and a faint metallic scent hanging in the air. It was no longer just a disappearance. Something far more sinister had begun to unfold. And the smiling image of Bassam and Habeeba was starting to fracture, revealing a dark truth hidden beneath years of illusion. The farmhouse stood like a relic of forgotten time, remote, surrounded by thick trees and buried beneath years of silence. To the untrained eye, it looked abandoned. Vines crept over the cracked walls, windows were clouded with dust, and the front porch sagged under the weight of rot. But as officers entered, the facade of neglect crumbled. Inside, there were signs of recent life. Fresh footprints in the dust, discarded food wrappers, and a faint smell of cigarette smoke confirmed it. What appeared dead had been quietly revived. Detective Sarwat ordered a full search. The main floor held nothing but old furniture covered in plastic stacks of unopened mail and boxes labeled with the Qureshi family name. But it was the basement that changed everything. A steel-reinforced door had been installed at the bottom of the stairs, new, heavy, locked from the outside. Once breached, what lay behind it startled even the most experienced officers. The basement was cold, artificially so. Portable fans and a temperature control unit had been rigged to maintain a consistent chill. The walls were soundproofed with foam panels, the kind used in recording studios. One side of the room had a single bed with metal railings. Next to it was a table cluttered with photography equipment, tripods, lighting panels, and an empty camera bag. Another corner had chains, bolted to the wall, their ends rusted but clearly used. The floor bore faded stains, some of them red, others discolored by cleaning agents. And then there were the photos. Hundreds of printed photographs lay inside folders scattered across the room. Each one featured Habeeba, sometimes sitting, sometimes lying down, sometimes barely conscious. In every image, she was positioned as though she were an exhibit. Her hair brushed, clothes changed, even makeup applied in some. They weren't images of violence, they were compositions. She had been turned into artwork against her will. The psychological weight of the discovery was heavy. This wasn't a place of rage. It was a chamber of control, every item arranged to maintain power over a life slowly fading out of existence. The officers found a hidden USB drive taped beneath a drawer. Forensic teams accessed it and uncovered hours of video footage, much of it damaged. Only fragments remained playable. But what they showed was undeniable. Habeeba in the basement, often silent, occasionally crying, her gaze empty. Bassam was called in for questioning again. This time, his calm demeanor was gone. He denied everything, but stumbled over details, claimed he hadn't visited the farmhouse in years, unaware that his vehicle had been caught on a traffic camera near the site just 2 weeks earlier. His alibis didn't hold. Farid, his brother, had reached a breaking point. He confessed that Bassam had been acting erratically, frequently leaving the house at night and returning with clothes that smelled of chemicals. As pressure mounted, a call came in from an unexpected source, Suhail Anwar, a local journalist. He had been digging into Bassam's history and found legal records from Dubai a decade ago. Bassam had been investigated under a different name for unlawful confinement and coercion. The case was dropped when the victim disappeared without explanation. The similarities were haunting. The media storm exploded. Images from the farmhouse leaked online, causing public outrage. People demanded justice for Habeeba, who had once been a symbol of grace and independence. Now, her image was being circulated as the face of a chilling domestic nightmare. Authorities sealed the farmhouse and began a broader search for Habeeba's remains, suspecting she had been buried somewhere nearby. Drones, cadaver dogs, and excavation. Teams were deployed across the forested land surrounding the property. Farid, consumed by guilt, offered everything he knew: dates, times, conversations, half forgotten but now significant. He admitted he had seen Bassam loading large plastic containers into his SUV late one night. What had started as a missing person case had transformed into a manhunt for proof of a murder. And all signs pointed to Bassam not as a grieving husband, but as a calculating captor who had turned love into a twisted performance of power and possession. The search was no longer about hope. It was about recovering the truth from the shadows of a nightmare that had been hidden in plain sight. The case had reached national attention. News outlets replayed images of Habeeba's smiling face, framed against chilling headlines. Social media buzzed with theories, timelines, and anger. Public sympathy turned into pressure, and every move by law enforcement was scrutinized. But behind the media frenzy, Detective Sarwat was meticulously working through a new phase of the investigation, raveling the complex layers of Bassam Qureshi's life. The breakthrough came when financial analysts traced an unusual pattern. In Bassam's recent bank activity, over the past 6 months, he had made several large wire transfers to unregistered foreign accounts in offshore locations. These accounts had no clear connection to his business and were carefully hidden through shell companies. Alongside this, investigators discovered that Bassam had taken out a massive life insurance policy on Habeeba less than a year ago. The payout clause was carefully worded. In the event of disappearance presumed as death after a year, the full amount would go to him. This was no random act of violence. It was methodical. Further examination of Bassam's phone and laptop, recovered during a court-approved search, revealed encrypted folders. Digital forensic experts spent days breaking through layers of security. What they found painted a disturbing picture. Hidden within were hundreds of emails under pseudonyms, all written by Bassam to someone unknown. The messages were obsessive and delusional, describing a fantasy world in which Habeeba was both prisoner and muse. He referred to her as the eternal exhibit and himself as the curator of truth. It was clear that he didn't see her as a person anymore. He saw her as a possession, an object to control and immortalize. Photos on his phone matched the ones found at the farmhouse. Metadata placed him at the site during the nights Habeeba was believed to be missing. There were also audio recordings, strange monologues where Bassam spoke to Habeeba, praising her stillness, her obedience, even as she wept softly in the background. Meanwhile, Suhail Anwar, the journalist who had earlier found Bassam's hidden identity, uncovered more chilling facts. In Dubai, Bassam had been known as Karim Al-Sharif. The case involving the vanished woman had been quietly buried after the victim, an artist named Layla Iqbal, had gone missing. At the time, authorities believed she'd left the country voluntarily. But Suhail dug deeper and discovered that Layla's final gallery exhibition had mirrored Habeeba's in eerie details, same color themes, same titles, and even some artworks recreated by Habeeba unknowingly. This wasn't Bassam's first obsession. It was a pattern. Tamkian Beg, Habeeba's best friend, was devastated by the revelations. She helped police piece together Habeeba's final weeks through email backups on Habeeba's old tablet, which Tamkian had once borrowed. They found draft messages that hinted at Habeeba's fear. In one, she wrote, "I think Bassam knows I found the file. If anything happens to me, please don't let my story disappear too." That line haunted Detective Sarwat. It confirmed that Habeeba had discovered something dark and tried to act, but she hadn't made it far enough. Perhaps she intended to leave, confront him, or expose him. Instead, she was silenced. The search intensified around the farmhouse. Cadaver dogs had picked up faint scents near a line of trees at the far edge of the property. Ground-penetrating radar detected disturbances in the soil. An excavation team was brought in. After hours of careful digging, they found a tightly wrapped tarp buried beneath concrete slabs. Inside was the body of Habeeba Tazeen. Forensics confirmed her identity and cause of death: asphyxiation due to manual suffocation. Her wrists bore marks from restraints, and she had been dressed in one of her own designed exhibition gowns. Bazoum had staged even her death as an extension of his fantasy. With the discovery, Bazoum was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, kidnapping, unlawful confinement, and financial fraud. His trial would become one of the most high-profile in the country's history. What once appeared as a love story had unraveled into something sinister, a tale of obsession, control, and betrayal. The truth was no longer a mystery. It was a horror Bassam had orchestrated with precision, hidden beneath charm, wealth, and the illusion of love. Bassam Qureshi's trial began in a packed courtroom overflowing with reporters, camera crews, and members of the public hungry for justice. The once celebrated businessman now sat behind bulletproof glass, his hands trembling slightly as he avoided the gaze of Habeeba's grieving family. The image of the man who once appeared on magazine covers and lifestyle shows was unrecognizable. His tailored suits were replaced with a dull gray prison uniform. His arrogance had given way too. Quiet, empty stares. Prosecutors presented a devastatingly thorough case. Exhibit after exhibit painted Bassam as a calculating predator. They showed surveillance footage placing him at the farmhouse, forensic evidence linking him to the basement chamber, and disturbing audio clips where he talked to Habeeba like she was a lifeless object. The court watched in silence as crime. Scene photos were displayed, images that captured the cold brutality of what had happened to Habeeba. Her final moments, it was clear, were spent not in panic, but in helpless submission. Digital forensics played a crucial role. The court listened to emails Bassam had sent to himself, crafting detailed diaries of his twisted logic. He wrote about how Habeeba had lost her will and how he had preserved her essence through his artwork. He believed he had given her purpose even as he robbed her of her voice, her freedom, and ultimately her life. Fareed Qureshi, Bazoum's own brother, testified as a witness. His face was pale as he recounted the night he had seen Bazoum loading containers into the back of his car. With visible remorse, he admitted he hadn't acted sooner, paralyzed by denial and disbelief. Tam Kienbeg also took the stand, her voice cracking as she read Habeeba's final email draft out loud. Her words became the emotional centerpiece of the trial. I want to be seen, not staged. I want to live, not exist in someone else's fantasy. Bassam's defense team tried to argue diminished mental capacity, citing his past trauma, artistic obsession, and delusional behavior. But the court wasn't convinced. Psychiatric evaluations revealed that while Bassam showed signs of narcissistic personality disorder, he was fully aware of his actions and their consequences. His behavior wasn't the result of insanity. It was the result of cruelty, masked behind the veil of creativity and charm. The jury deliberated for just under 5 hours. When they returned, the verdict was unanimous, guilty on all counts. The sentence was life imprisonment without parole. Bassam sat motionless. No tears, no words, no apology. The aftermath of the trial sparked nationwide reflection. Advocacy groups used Habeeba's case to push for stronger protections against domestic abuse, psychological coercion, and digital surveillance. Her story became part of school curriculums, women's rights campaigns, and international awareness efforts. She was no longer just a victim. She had become a symbol. TAM KEEN, in collaboration with Habeeba's mother, reopened the art gallery and dedicated a wing to Habeeba's original work. The exhibit, titled Unseen Until Gone, featured paintings, photographs, and unfinished canvases found in her home studio. Visitors came from across the country to honor her life, her voice, and her resistance. Proceeds from the gallery were donated to shelters and organizations supporting women escaping abuse. Detective Starwat Kaleem received a Medal of Honor for her persistence and dedication. She later revealed that this case haunted her more than any other, not because of the violence, but because of how easily it had been hidden behind wealth and appearances. She emphasized that true evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes it looks like a husband, a businessman, A man who smiles for the camera while building a cage in the dark. In the end, Bassam's betrayal was more than a crime. It was a warning, a reminder that love, when poisoned by control, can become a weapon more dangerous than any blade. And while Habiba's life was stolen, her story would forever remain, echoing beyond courtroom walls, reminding the world of the price paid when silence is mistaken for peace.